Hi, Latonia.
Good, how are you, Maria?
I'm good, Mr. Mayor.
Good to see you.
You're good to go.
Thank you.
We're good to go, okay. Good evening, we'll call the meeting together to order. Madam Clerk Terry, would you please call the roll?
Sure. Ms. Naylor,
Present.
Attorney Murphy? I know he's coming on, but maybe he
I
hasn't.
know he's coming on, yeah. He probably just hasn't logged on yet.
I'll come back. Ms. Hurst? And I know she's coming on as well. Ms. Gresham?
Present.
Ms. Perez?
Present.
Mr. Collins?
Here.
And Mayor Sarno?
President, can we all please rise to a moment of silence? We will dedicate that moment of silence to a beloved educator from Duncan Academy, Marianne Fitzy Fitzgerald. God rest her soul. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic that stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much, everyone, and good evening. I'd also like to give a shout out to my lovely wife, Carla. Happy birthday. Oh. Tonight, Buona Compliano is between Italian, and then a special shout out to, I know Superintendent Warwick will speak more about it, but the Urban League, the 108th anniversary event tonight, they're honoring some of our key Springfield team and our teachers. So congratulate, and Community Builders Awards. Of course, our commissioner, my commissioner of Health and Human Services, Helen Colton Harris, and Kathy Mastronardi. There are paraprofessionals on it, so congratulations to those individuals and groups. We appreciate that. We'll now move to approval of the minutes. There was none, so we can move to, actually, I believe there was a motion to move. Motion, out of respect to our award-winning teachers, Grin School, to call it out of order. So a motion was made by Vice Chair Collins. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Attorney Peter Murphy. Madam Clerk, could you please record that Attorney Murphy is here now?
Yes.
And we will go to Grinspoon 2021 Pioneer Valley Excellence in Teaching Awards.
Mayor, you need to take a roll call vote with regards to taking it out of order, since it is a motion.
Even on Zoom, okay. Because we're on Zoom, thank you, Attorney Phelps, Mindy, on that. We technically have to call a roll call vote.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll. This is again to call out of order the Grinspoon Teachers of Excellence Award.
Yes.
Call the roll, please.
Ms. Naylor?
Yes.
Attorney Murphy?
Yes.
Ms. Hurst?
Yes.
Ms. Gresham?
Yes.
Ms. Perez?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
And Mayor Sarno?
More than sufficient vote, this matter passes. Could you, Madam Clerk, also record that Ms. Hurst is now on the meeting also. I will turn it over to Superintendent Warwick, and we look very much forward to congratulating our award-winning teachers. Superintendent Warwick?
Yeah, very proud to recognize our award-winning teachers again this year. It's just a great pleasure. Julie Jaron helps me with that every year. She's on here, but you know, it's always been a great pleasure. In years past, I used to get to go to their schools and meet them in their classroom. This year, everything's on Zoom, but we're very, very grateful to our outstanding teachers. And I think this year, our teachers, counselors have stepped forward and done a job that's absolutely incredible, both remote and now getting our kids back in live. They've done a great job there too. We're very, very grateful. And I always say our teachers here in Springfield are second to none anywhere. And when you look at the kind of attendance data we've had through the remote and then now bringing the kids back live, we're holding almost near where we were last year. And our chronic truancy is actually down. It's gone higher everywhere else in the state. But you know, that's the way our teachers kept our kids engaged and provided quality learning opportunities for them. And they really adapted both remote and live to provide the best opportunity. So from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank our wonderful teachers that are going to get recognized tonight. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Superintendent Warwick. Julie, are you heading this up, or do you want me to say the teachers that are being awarded?
Yes, I would appreciate your
Okay.
making the announcement
Okay, so,
from there,
This
but just
is-
wanted to mention
yes,
that we have 20 veteran teachers this year and 1 new teacher.
the veteran winners for 2021, again, and to the Grinspoon Foundation. Harold Grinspoon, the whole team there, thank you for putting such an importance on education. We deeply appreciate that. I don't know if any school committee members like to say a few words before I name the teachers at all. Okay, we can do that after the fact if you'd like. So, leading the charge on Veteran Winners 2021. Put your hands together from DeBerry Elementary, 2nd grade. Brenda Vihalo. If I pronounced your name wrong, please correct me. Brenda, congratulations. Is Brenda on there? Where's Brenda? Is she on there?
I'm right here.
Okay, Brenda. There you go, Brenda. Okay,
Thank you.
congratulations.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you. From Balliet Middle, 7th and 8th grade, SPED. Erica Begley. Is Erica on there? Congratulations, Erica.
Connie Begley.
Oh, it's Connie's kid? Oh, yeah. This week. Public Day Middle, 6th to 8th Reading Intervention, ILS. Sarah Alwan? Sarah? Where are you, Sarah? Are you on there? You're on there somewhere. Okay, very good. I can't wait till we get together.
Yeah, right.
I'm getting so tired of
We
this
can
Zoom.
bring everyone in.
I'm tired of this Zoom. Milton Bradley's in the house, grade 3 ELA. Allison Santare, if I pronounce it wrong, please correct me. Allison, congratulations. Here's an old friend from Rebecca Johnson. Put your hands together for Cheryl Ray Bass. Cheryl? Central High School's in the house, the home of scholars and champions. Grade 10, now, let me get back to Cheryl Ray Bass, Elementary Adjustment Counselor. Cheryl Ray, congratulations on that. Central High School, again, the home of Scholars and Champions, grade 10, English Language Arts. Put your hands together for David McCutcheon. David? Pottinger's in the house, elementary pre-K to 5. Music, making beautiful educational music. Put your hands together for Catherine Cruiser. Catherine? I see her in the corner. It's like Hollywood Squares here. Okay, I'll take you for the block. Very good, okay. STEM, that's for the old timers. We know what Hollywood Squares is. STEM Middle is in the house, 6th, 7th, 8th grade visual arts. I know, Julie, you'll like that very much, so visual arts. Amy Silva. Amy? Okay. Oh, my alma mater, White Street School, grade 1, all subjects, very versatile here. Caitlin Hove. Caitlin, congratulations. Okay. Rebecca Johnson's in the house again, kindergarten. Amy Barrett. Amy, congratulations. Central High School's in the house again. School counselor, graduation coach, grade 9. They're doing a great job. Graduation rate nearly 80% we're doing all around the school system. Kathleen Conlon. Kathleen, congratulations. Conservatory of the Arts, 6th through 12th grade, ILS, AP Statistics, grades 10 through 12. Put your hands together for Kathleen Chase. Milton Bradley is in the house again, ELA, ILS, pre-K to 5th. Taylor Saka Gunn, if I pronounce it wrong. Taylor, congratulations. Skatuk, I think that's what it is there. We got a double hit from the High School of Science and Technology. Art teacher, Julia will like that again. Put your hands together for Jennifer Sinclair. Jennifer Sinclair. And here's an old neighborhood friend of mine from many, many years ago. Sci-Tech again, 9th through 12th grade deportment. Put your hands together for Jimmy Nilari. Jimmy, congratulations, Jimmy. That's great. Kennedy Middle School's in the house, and I know I saw Principal Calvin. He's got about 35 schools now or whatever, 3 schools there, so Principal Calvin's really good on that. 6th grade math, Kennedy Middle School, and the winner is, put your hands together for Sally Kim. Sally Kim. Brookings Elementary, grade 3. Mary Pat O'Connor, put your hands together. Congratulations. I see it, Terry Poe. I see it, Terry Poe. This is exciting. Hold on there. Okay, way to go. We have my alma mater again, White Street School, School Adjustment Counselor Elementary, Jason Ravizza. Jason, are you there?
I'm here.
I see you there. You're making some adjustments. I see. Okay. Please, it's the best meeting of my day. I have a few laughs here now, in a good way. Duggan Academy's in the house. I know Principal Calvinese is on. And 7th grade English Language Arts. And I know it's Alexander Friedman. Mr. Friedman. Okay. Glickman Elementary is in the house. Kindergarten is in the house. And in the house of winners is Linda Tierney. Linda Tierney. Okay. Dun, 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 dun. Julie, this is a new teacher winner, am I correct? 2021. From Duggan Academy. Links, Autistic, SPED, Classroom, 6th and 7th grade. Sean, and I'm going to need help on that last name. August. Oh, that's the one. Excellent. Hey, Sean, I might need some tutoring on some of those names. You might be able to help me out on it. But congratulations to each and every one of you. And I know from the school committee members and Superintendent Warwick, we wish we could be together. Sick and tired of these air hugs. But I'm sure that school committee members would like to say a few words in congratulating you. So the floor is open.
Sure, Mr. Mayor.
Vice Chair
I haven't heard anybody. I certainly agree with the superintendent that Springfield's teachers are unmatched anywhere in the country. The backbone of a school, the entire educational system rests on you people. And it's wonderful to see people acknowledged in a way like this. And we all thank you. I know we'd love to be there, shake your hand right now. But from the bottom of our hearts, for everything you do every day, especially this year when it's got to have been such a challenge. Thank you so much for what you do for the children of Springfield.
Thank you, Vice Chair Collins. Any other school committee members, please?
Sure, Mr. Mayor.
Ms. Hurst, I'll go to Ms. Hurst and then I'll go to Attorney Murphy. Ms. Hurst, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To all of the award winners, congratulations, and congratulations to you, because as our vice chair just stated, this was a very difficult year, a challenging year. And, you know, we aren't able to thank you day in and day out for all of the things that you guys do on a daily basis. but know that your efforts do not go unnoticed. I have 2 children in the Springfield public school system, and I know just by watching how they interact with their teachers that you all are making an incredible effort, and that you have been extremely resilient and have had to shift in the midst of all of this crisis. And so I say to you, thank you as a school committee member, as a parent, as a community member, and as a graduate of the public schools. I wouldn't be where I was today if it weren't because of teachers like yourselves. So thank you, and please know that I appreciate all of your efforts.
Thank you, Ms. Hurst. Attorney Murphy, and the hair's looking good there, Attorney Murphy.
Thank you, Mayor. I did get a haircut to try that. But just to echo what Ms. Hurst said very eloquently, and Mr. Collins, we're tremendously grateful. My children went from preschool to, God willing, they're going to graduate this year. My oldest children, they're twins, and they've had exceptional teaching. They wouldn't have gotten where they are. They're going to go to great colleges, and they wouldn't have gotten there without you. So I'm personally incredibly grateful, and I know that we are, as a school committee, really grateful for what you do day in and day out, and particularly with the tough year, year or so that we've had with Corona. I mean, it's been incredible what you've done, and to excel during that period is really a testament to all of you guys. So just thank you very much, and we're tremendously grateful.
Thank you, Attorney Murphy. Any other school committee members, please? Ms. Perez?
She's muted.
You're muted, Maria.
There she goes.
You know what, with this world pandemic, I have to say that I'm proud to be a school committee member and have the groups of teachers that are serving our children in our community. My son right now, he's one of the big heads for Homeland Security, and it because teachers like you believe in him. From the bottom of my heart, I say thank you, because this is a big task for you guys. Just thank you from the bottom of my heart, and congratulations.
Thank you, Ms. Perez. Any other school committee members, please? Ms. Gresham?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to piggyback on what my colleagues have said. Thank you and congratulations to all of the awardees, because you deserve it during this challenging time that we faced. So once again, congratulations and thank you for all that you've done.
Thank you, Ms. Gresham. Ms. Naylor?
Thank you. I definitely echo the sentiments of my colleagues as well. I have had the pleasure of having children at White Street, so I already knew and wasn't surprised to see Jason getting this award. And just a little plug, Mr. Mayor, Principal Cons is getting an award from Parent Villages this year. So it's a phenomenal group of folks. And even outside of White Street, I've worked with so many of these different professionals, and I'm just so thankful that I can trust my kids in our district as well. It says a lot when you're able to send your own kids to certain places, and we believe in what we are standing for. We believe that we all are working together to do the same thing, which is make sure all of our kids get what they need and have the education that they need to be successful. And you all are really the epitome of that. So thank you for everything that you do, all of the sacrifice. You don't get paid enough for the time and effort that it takes for you to do your jobs well. So thank you so much for the love that you have for our children, and just continue doing what you're doing. And I know you're going to continue to reap good things because you're sowing good things. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Naylor. I also want to thank many of the principals around, and if we were together, the principals usually walk their winners down the aisle and say a few words. So all the principals that are on, we deeply appreciate it. And you are making a huge difference. Last night, or the other night we were together, graduation rates now hovering near 80%. Some dozen years ago it was 50-50. Dropout rate maybe a dozen years ago was nearly 12%. Now 3%. And it all starts from the classroom. So we're deeply appreciative of your efforts. And you might not get that pat on the back immediately, but you're going to run into, if you haven't already, young people that you helped out 2, 5, 7, 10, 12, 20 years from now. And they're going to say, remember, they're going to say, thank you. Because of your efforts, I'm now doing very well in this career path. You can't put a price tag on that. So to all the Grin Spoon winners, thank you for your continued belief and investment in our kids. And stay healthy, you and your families, continued success, and God bless. Terry, give me a big cheer there. Will you, Terry Cole? Come on, Terry Cole. Yeah, all right, I know, you're ready. Okay. Any other questions or comments on this? We are out on Grin Spoon in a good way. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're more than welcome to stay, or if you're gonna go watch the NFL draft, you can do that too if you want to.
Just text us and let us know.
All right, thank you for the indulgence of the school committee members for doing that. Again, on approval of minutes, there was none. We're gonna move to voting items. A is to approve the expenditure of $16,000 for the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, DESE, for FY '21. Growing literacy equity across Massachusetts. It's called, the acronym is GLEAM, Collaboration and Preparation. Superintendent Ward, please.
Yeah, we're pleased to receive this grant, and Laura Menz, our literacy supervisor, is on to talk about the Springfield Public Schools piece of it for $8,000, and then Nicole Cristoforo from the Empowerment Zone is going to give a brief description of what they're going to do with the money. So Laura, if you could just give a brief overview of what we're going to do with this.
And Laura taught my daughters too, Frederick Harris School.
They're where they are because of me, right?
That's right. That's right.
Thank you. School committee, thank you so much. $8,000 planning grant from the state for growing literacy equity across Massachusetts. The elementary literacy department is using those funds to convene stakeholders, Unit A teachers and parent groups, to talk about the teaching of reading, multi-tiered systems of support, and culturally responsive teaching. We're using these stakeholder convenings to really kind of do a needs assessment, how to help us think about how we're formulating professional development and rolling out our new curriculums and being responsive to our diverse community. So we're excited. We did a test run last night with our department chairs, and we're ready to rock and roll a couple of weeks with some other stakeholder groups.
Thank you, Laura. Any questions or comments? Ms. Gresham, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a question. So do you have the list of people that's on the team? Because I know DESE specifically said administrative families, community partners.
So we're compiling that list as we start convening folks. Yes.
All right. Can we get a list of that, of the people that's on that committee? Would that be possible?
Sure.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gresham. Any other questions or comments? Okay.
Is Nicole Cristoforo from the Empowerment Zone on?
Ms. Cristoforo, Nicole? Say again?
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Here, any comments?
Yeah, it came through the subcommittee.
Nicole was on the subcommittee and explained how they were going to use the grant in the middle schools. So she did come on and explain it. And after both Lori and Nicole explained it, it got unanimous approval from the subcommittee.
Thank you, Vice Chair Collins.
So I recommend approval.
Superintendent recommends approval. Any other questions or comments? If there are none, is there a motion on the floor to accept, please?
So moved.
Motion by Vice Chair Collins. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Second by Ms. Gresham. Roll call vote is required. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes. Ms. Naylor?
Yes.
Attorney Murphy?
Yes.
Ms. Hurst?
Yes.
Ms. Gresham?
Yes.
Ms. Perez?
You're mute, Maria. She did say yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
And Mayor Sarno?
Yes, board is official vote, this matter passes. Thank you very much. B is to approve the revised 2021-2022 school year calendar. Superintendent Warren?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, we have a small revision in the calendar. Maria caught that when we were doing the PD days, we used to do Three Kings Day as one of the days. And we were able to revise the calendar working with Stefan Urashilla from academics to put that back in as a PD day. So January 6th, we changed the PD day back in for Three Kings Day and took out the PD day we had in March. But Stefan and her team are able to reorganize the PD and it's going to work fine. We'll go back to Three Kings Day. Latonia and Denise also gave me a call on it. So very grateful for everyone's support with that because that was popular. So it's a good catch. So I recommend approval of the revised calendar.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments?
Yes, Mayor.
The license, he doesn't get Superintendent Cole if he did this.
Ms. Hurst, please.
Yes, so I know that this is probably the most we've ever had to review a calendar, and for important reasons, of course. But I know that we reviewed Secretary Galvin's his, or at least I have reviewed the website, and I believe that the superintendent in his office reviewed it as well with respect to Juneteenth, and that the way that it falls this year, that the state was, because it fell on a Saturday, that it would be observed on a Saturday. So I'm only raising this because I do know that other districts and even neighboring districts are observing it on Friday, their municipal offices, and at the statewide level, it's also being observed, and state agencies, institutions are also closed on that Friday. And so I'm just wondering what we're going to do as a district, or I shouldn't say what we're going to do. Are we amenable to relooking at that, considering there are other municipalities that are honoring it on that day, and that the state or state agencies and institutions are also honoring it on that day and are closed?
I had not heard
Everybody
that.
knew that. So like, for example, you all know that I work at a higher education institution here in the city that's a public institution. There are other Westfield State, UMass, they are all closed. The city of Holyoke is closed. The districts are closed. And so I just wanted to bring that up because I know that it's come up recently, or at least it came up in my institution this past week about how this was a closure that was happening.
Is there, thank you, Mr. Is there an edict on the state level? Because there was nothing sent down, brought to our attention.
So it's interesting that you asked that, Mr. Mayor, because when I initially had this conversation with the superintendent, he and his staff looked, and even as up until recently, I think like 2 days ago, I looked on Secretary of State Galvin's website, and it read the same exact way, that it was going to be honored on or observed on Saturday because it was a state holiday on Saturday. But I do know that state institutions, STIC, Westfield State, UMass, many of the other community colleges across the state, and some of the other state institutions, I saw that Holyoke also just put it out, or they had already voted on it, that they were also closing. I mean, I can forward that to the superintendent tomorrow. I can forward it to him this evening, but just an
Yeah,
FYI.
I didn't see that, Denise. Yeah, because I saw the original one when we talked about it. So,
And
no,
it's
school
still the
ends
same
for kids
one.
on the 17th. Sorry?
Right, and it is still the same one, superintendent, the same one that we is the same one that's still there. Because I went back to look at it when I found out that these other entities were going to be closed in observance of this holiday. So I just wanted to bring it to the forefront because it is something that appears to be happening around us.
Attorney Phelps, can you clarify, if the state is not ordering this edict, is that a vote of the school? And on my city side, would that have to take some type of executive order and or a council vote? I mean, there's no mandate that came from, obviously the following year, it falls upon a regular day, we're going to honor that. But that's news to me of what jurisdiction, whether school committee or the city has to declare that it's gonna be an off day and you're gonna be paid for it too. I mean, what's the protocol on that, Attorney Phelps?
So the Secretary of State establishes the state holidays, and this state holiday for this year is being treated like all other state holidays. That is, if the holiday falls on a Saturday, it's observed on a Saturday. Interestingly, if the state holiday falls on a Sunday, it's observed on Monday.
Right.
So Juneteenth this year is a state holiday. It will be, according to the Secretary of State's website, observed on Saturday, just as any other state holiday would be. It appears that from Ms. Hurst's recount, that there are individual municipalities and subdivisions of the Commonwealth who have elected to close the day before in observance of the holiday. You know, to consider that for this school system, you have to look at the calendar with regards to the required and requisite DESI days to make certain that that is met. So that's the prohibition on that. With regards to the city side, I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, I'll probably defer to your law department on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for students, schools close on the 17th, so it wouldn't affect our student calendar at all. It would be for the offices for this year. We did get the Sunday to Monday piece right for next year, and I worked with Denise on that. So that's reflected properly in the calendar for next year.
Did you say schools close on the 17th?
Yeah, students will finish on the 17th this year.
So if we observe it on the 17th, we'd have to go back on Monday.
No. Denise is proposing celebrating on Friday the 19th. What I'm saying is school's already going to be closed.
Friday the 8th.
The schools are closed. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
All right.
Schools are already
You're right,
closed.
it's Friday the 18th.
And
You're
then,
right, yeah.
if there's not a mandate.
But you could, if you're doing the offices in the city, we close the offices.
Well, again, I'm not gonna, we received no official notice whatsoever. We're honoring following the proper protocols, so, if we have to look, law department has to look into it, fine. But I'm just saying, we're honoring all the proper protocol, on it, and,
I'm just bringing it to your attention because I know that we have revisited the calendar a number of times. I also
we're trying to get it right.
And that it is a new holiday. And so when we were talking about Three Kings Day and we were talking about Juneteenth for the years to come, I just wanted to make sure that we knew as a city and our district that this was also being honored in other ways by other differently and by state institutions.
But participated in a number throughout the years Juneteenth celebrations, and last one that we were able to do at the Ray Jordan Center was packed. So I don't know with restrictions what we're going to be able to do, or the Brethren's going to be able to do on that. But so there's been no state mandate that's come down saying that to take the day off. At all.
No, we followed the state guidelines that both Denise and I looked up at the time. And then next year's calendar, because I believe it's a Sunday, we've got it slated on the Monday. So we made sure we did that right. For some reason, if it's a Sunday, they went Monday, but if it's a Saturday, they didn't, Galvin didn't put it out to go Friday. So we just followed that directive,
Well, we're on the state protocol now, and if something comes out, it will have to be reviewed, because I don't know if it opens up a Pandora's box with others on it. But it's an important holiday, should be marked either way, and we'll continue to mark it for Juneteenth, especially for our African-American population. Any other questions or comments? Okay. On the approved revised 2021.
I think that's just.
Okay, 2021-2022 school year calendar. Is there a motion to accept?
I'll move we accept the, what is it, fourth calendar?
Whatever. Motion by Vice Chair Collins, is there a second? Say again, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Naylor. Roll call vote is required. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes. Ms. Naylor,
Yes.
Attorney Murphy,
Yes.
Ms. Hurst,
Yes.
Ms. Gresham,
Yes.
Ms. Perez,
She said yes. Maria, you're mute.
Mr. Collins,
Yes.
and Mayor Sarno.
Yes, for the sufficient vote, matter passes. Thank you very much. Informational items, we'll go to City Connects update. It's ironic, last night, Ms. Naylor brought it up at our public budget session, so we have the City Connects was on their City Connects update, which has done fantastic work with wraparound services for each and every one of our families. Superintendent Warwick, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. That's a good segue. We were talking about it last night at the budget meeting, and we try to do an annual presentation. Last year, of course, due to the pandemic, we didn't do the presentation. So I'm thrilled to have Mary Walsh from Boston College and our own Julie Donovan, our City Connect supervisor here in Springfield. It's made a big difference for our kids and our families, really providing the kind of wraparound services our families need. The data from the City Connects program has been absolutely incredible. And when you looked at school turnaround in Springfield, our first level 4 schools, City Connects was one of the key programs, and all those schools that were part of City Connects came out of level 4, and that was part of the formula for us. It made a big, big difference because our families need that support. And during this pandemic, that kind of support and wraparound services is more important than ever. So I'll turn it over to Julie and Mary Walsh from BC, who's been a great partner with us to make the presentation.
Thank you. Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Sarno, Superintendent Warwick, and members of the school committee. Thank you for giving us an opportunity to speak to you on the practice of City Connects and the astounding outcomes that we have seen. As Superintendent Warwick has said, I'm joined today by Dr. Mary Walsh, who is the Executive Director of City Connects and a professor at Boston College in the School of Education. Mary, if you want to wave, just so everybody knows. Okay, so City Connects and Springfield Public Schools has partnered since 2009. We have started first in the turnaround schools and have slowly grown to 40 schools implementing the model. All schools are chosen based on data, attendance rates, testing data, and size of school. As you may recall, City Connects is a comprehensive, research-based model of student support. The model is a clear, proactive, preventative approach to student support. Our coordinators are like wraparound coordinators that assess the needs and strengths of every student as a way to build an individualized student support plan. This plan lists the tailored set of prevention, early intervention, and intensive services that the student might need in order to thrive and succeed in school. And I would just emphasize that it's all students that receive a student support plan. So, just forward. Okay. So in the area of academics, up to 2/3 of the disparities in achievement can be explained by the out-of-district factors. So research has shown that the quality of academics and curriculum may not be all enough, that we need to really address the out-of-school barriers that are preventing our students from succeeding. And here are some of them, some housing instability. We have a large population of homeless students, food insecurity, chronic health conditions, mental health conditions that we really try to connect them with those appropriate services. So how do we connect families, schools, and communities? We first do what we call our whole class reviews, which is right here, is the review of every student with their teacher. And the coordinator and the teacher meet to discuss the strengths and needs across 4 developmental domains, which are academic, social, emotional, behavioral, health, and family. They talk about what tier to put the child what tier the child might be appropriate to be placed in, as well as the appropriate interventions or resources that those students might need. Out of that whole class review becomes a proposed student support plan that I mentioned earlier. This all goes into a database called MyConnects. And so every student at that school will have a student support plan in that database. Now, if a student rises to the level of a tier 3, more of intensive needs, we then bring them to what we call our STAT, or individual student review. And this team really is a multidisciplinary team that works to really find the root cause of what might be the challenge for that student. And also I should mention is that we do invite parents, guardians, any other type of service providers. They are involved in this meeting to develop more goals and interventions for that student. Always, we are connecting with our families about the appropriate referrals and resources. We are talking to community partners. We're finding new community partners to help us with providing those services. And as I mentioned, here in the middle here is the MyConnects system. And we put everything in there. There's a lot of data entry, but then there's a lot of the feedback and the follow-up. So, we just don't, give a student or family a service. We want to know if they're attending that service, how that service is, being useful to them, or do we need to get them more? So there's always that important follow-up and feedback. And the feedback also goes back to the school. So say one of our students needed a wraparound service, such as in-home behavioral health therapy. We would then, obviously make the referral, talk with the families, and then make sure that, where they are on the wait list, or, who their therapist is, and communicate that with, how the therapy's going, and also if, we could be part of that treatment plan as well. So here is the role of the coordinator within a school. I'm going to pay attention to the left part, which is over here. Again, it's the tailored, personalized support plans for every student. And so that's what their responsibility is to do those whole class reviews for every student. Review and support intensive needs students. So that's basically what I just mentioned is our STAT, or individual student review. We are constantly making and building relationships with community partnerships, connecting families and students to school and community, and maintaining the real-time electronic records that I mentioned in MyConnects. And we're constantly communicating, collaborating with the school adjustment counselor, guidance counselor, the principal, assistant principal, in regards to any services that these students are receiving. So over on the right here, gotta move, oops, sorry. I can't read that section. Also, the City Connects coordinator participates in initiatives that might be within the school, such as PBIS. Also, they deliver that social emotional learning curriculum that we adopted this year called Second Step. So they share the responsibility with the school adjustment counselor or guidance counselor. And they may also be involved in some crisis interventions that the students might need. And then also they're part of the school. So they share in school duties, lunch duty, bus duty, and any other school-wide initiatives that they might help, the parent facilitator with in regards to any parent programming that the school might be holding. So when connecting students to services, these are the categories that we really look at. And it's prevention and enrichment, early intervention, intensive crisis intervention. And as you can see, the different activities, services that fall under each of them. The prevention and enrichment is before and after school programming, any health and wellness initiatives that we might have within the school or outside of the school. Early intervention is those small social skills groups, any behavior plan that the student might need. There's PBIS has a check-in, check-out type of program that we might, refer a student to. And then always there's that intensive crisis services where students might need more of that high intensity mental health wraparound, attended support, any family help that they might need. So here's the breakdown from last year is the categories of services. So as you can see, prevention and enrichment was the highest. So that's more of those youth development programs. Early intervention was the second highest. And those are, the health, mental health, social, emotional, mentoring, tutoring, things of that nature. And then the intensive crisis is the counseling, attendance support, the therapeutic mentoring that is part of that wraparound CBHI initiative. So those are the breakdowns. Also, we served 8,543 students were served last year across our schools. 100% received a whole class review. 100, now this is astounding, is 100,651 services were delivered to students. At least 100% received one service, and 99 students received 3 or more services. So those are really great numbers.
Great. Up on the TV.
So each year we survey the principals to see how satisfied they are with City Connects and to see what improvements we can make. So ever since we've been doing these studies, principals have had high ratings. And as you can see, they're pretty high. And they really feel that City Connects coordinators support teachers during difficult or sensitive conversations with families. Connecting families to services is at 100% satisfied. Supporting families with transitions, leaving school, transferring to different districts. So that's impressive, and we always want to make our principals happy. So I always really like seeing these results turn out this way. So again, we survey our teachers, and as you can see, that is pretty high as well. The whole class reviews are pretty intensive. They give up a lot of their time. And so
I had one class last night.
If I could call the meeting to order, if people that are not speaking right now, you could please mute yourself. The interference is interrupting a little bit Julie Donovan's presentation. With all due respect, please. Thank you. Go ahead, Ms. Donovan, I'm sorry.
It's no problem. So as you can see, again, is that the satisfaction rate is pretty high in regards to teachers. And on the left, you can see some of the things that they have said it is because of those whole class reviews, those stats, that teachers feel supported and able to see the whole child, not just the academics, but what might be really going on in the life of that child. And then they're able to adjust their own practice or way of instructing or responding to a student. So for example, at the bottom, I think about the factors influencing student behavior before I react to the behavior. And that's really wonderful that, you know, these conversations through those whole class reviews and stats, you know, have that ability to have teachers think in a holistic manner for students. So now I'm going to turn it off to Dr. Mary Walsh, who is going to talk about our outcomes.
Thank you, Ms. Donovan. Dr. Walsh, please.
Thank you, Mayor Sarno, Superintendent Warwick, the school committee members, and Julie. Thank you for being here and listening to our conversation about City Connects. I was thinking earlier when I heard the great accomplishments, especially on dropout rates and graduation rates in Springfield. Something crossed my mind that never did before. And let me tell you what it is. I live outside of Boston, and every day we get the Boston Globe. And the Boston Globe almost every day has, you know, newspapers don't print the positive news, so it's usually what's the bad news. And almost every day there are stories about various school districts in the paper. And Boston Public Schools, of course, is in there almost every day. Something went wrong somewhere. And other school districts around the state, even Holyoke, anything happens, it's in the Boston Globe. I can't remember the last time I ever saw anything about Springfield Public Schools. And I was thinking, what a tragedy that they don't report the good news. But the fact that you're not in the Boston Globe is my clue every day that you're doing really, really well. And so
thank you, Dr. Walsh.
You should be really glad. This slide here is the story over 20 years of what we've learned about how City Connects works. And I should tell you that when we started City Connects, our hope was that it would improve student academics in the elementary school grades, if we could do that. And a lot of people said, look, it's really a reach. If you take care of a child's toothache, if you get a child a pair of glasses, if you help a homeless family to find housing, that's not going to impact reading and math. And one very prominent researcher said to me in education, he said, you might see something, but it might be about 10 years. And the amazing thing was we saw it so quickly. After 3 years, we saw real improvements. But this is a summary of what we've seen over 20 years across all our schools. So just quickly, we see better grades. Immediately, we see an increase in report cards. And this is comparing child for child with students that don't have City Connects, but these children are the same on 11 characteristics: their socioeconomic status, their race, their gender. We compare them very, very tightly. So we see improved report card scores actually after a year. We see better performance in statewide tests, significantly better performance on the MCAS. We see better academic effort. Their motivation is significantly better than kids not in City Connect schools. We clearly see better attendance and much less chronic absenteeism. When these children, at the time that we did this analysis, the kids had City Connects up to grade 5, and then they went to a whole variety of middle schools. And in the middle schools where we don't have City Connects in this particular study, we don't have City Connects, but we followed the same children by ID number. They were less likely to be chronically absent. They were less likely to repeat a grade and less likely to drop out of high school. That's long after they've left us, the City Connects intervention. And recently, because we've been around so long, we were able to follow the same children into post-secondary experience. And there we see they're more likely to enroll in post-secondary education, either a 2-year, a 4-year, or a certificate program. And furthermore, they're significantly more likely to complete it. And I was thinking about the comments that you made earlier. I was touched by it. I think it was Denise describing her having been through the Springfield system and saying, I attribute some of my success to my experience in the schools. And I think it was Maria who talked about her son, who's now working in computers and saying the same thing. And I'm thinking their stories reflect this kind of trend where we can really increase the life chances of children if we do right by them when they're young. And right by them is getting them whatever it is that they need to be successful. Julie, before we go into these graphs, and I know nobody wants to be looking at graphs on a Thursday night when the NFL draft is on, so I'll go quickly. But
You're too much, Dr. Walsh.
Yeah.
Before we went into City Connects, before we went into Springfield rather, when we did go in, it was 2011. And we went into the, Dan called them the level 4 schools. At the time, they were called the euphemism turnaround schools. It was another word for failing schools. And before we went in that year, we looked at the test scores and they were abysmally low and there was higher rates of absenteeism when you compare them to the other schools in Springfield. And that's why, of course, they were called turnaround schools. They were designated that by the state. Within 3 years of their having City Connects, now remember, we took on the schools with the most challenged outcomes. We saw a significant, large improvement in both math and English language arts. And when we compared those improvements, that's not on this graph, so just hold a minute. When we compared those improvements to the other schools in Springfield, we saw the other schools stayed level and in some cases even dropped a little. So the turnaround schools made significant gains. And the interesting thing, we said, eventually they came out of turnaround status in the state. They had to achieve certain criteria before they came out of what was called turnaround status. We compared these turnaround schools in Springfield to the other turnaround schools in the state. And what we saw is the Springfield schools came out of turnaround schools faster, significantly faster than the other schools in the state. And it's all because we were trying to address the non-academic challenges that these children had. And if you do it, of course they can succeed in school. Then let's turn to the graphs. What we see in the graphs, in the first one, we're comparing, in fact, in all of these, we're comparing those early turnaround schools where we have the data for the longest, because remember, we were in these in 2011, so we can look longitudinally over time. But we see math scores increased significantly more in the Springfield turnaround schools than they did in the other turnaround schools in the state. And they started lower, but look how they caught up. They're the red. Springfield turnarounds are in red. And look how they caught up to the rest of the schools, the turnaround schools in the state, even though they were much lower. And then you see in English language arts, they actually go beyond. And this is in the 4th grade. In the 4th grade, we're seeing significant improvements in both English language arts and math. In the next slide, and these slides are honestly difficult to interpret, so bear with me. But the conclusion in the next one is in grade 5 in math, we see a significant difference. And so the English language art difference was in the right direction, but it was not significant in grade 5. But the bottom line is we're able to document that the intervention, the City Connects intervention, made a significant impact on the statewide tests. And whatever you think, positive or negative, about statewide tests anywhere, the fact is they're one measure of achievement. Now, we also saw significant improvements in absenteeism. We saw significant improvements in chronic absenteeism, and we see significant improvements in motivation or effort. And over the years, we've slowly, Superintendent Warwick has slowly been able to add schools to City Connects, and it is thriving under the leadership of Julie and Superintendent Warwick. They have been most supportive of this intervention. And I think the results that we're seeing bear out the fact that it truly is helping kids, in contrast to many things that you try, and I've been around a long time trying to make things better for kids living in poverty. Many things we try, we either can't measure the results or we don't get results. And with this one, we've been able to do both. So thank you for your support all these years. And we're thrilled with the outcomes and delighted that it's Springfield. And if I ever get anything into the Globe on Springfield, this will be the story.
Thank you very much, Dr. Walsh. I love your style. Thank you very, very much.
Don't tell the Globe where we are.
Yeah. Ms. Donovan, Julian, is there anything else to add before I turn it over for any questions or comments from school committee members?
So these are just the schools that are in, we have City Connects in. All of our elementary schools have a City Connects coordinator. All of our non-ZEP middle schools have a City Connects coordinator. We have one high school that is focused on the 9th grade. So that's our list here. And these are just some of our partners that we refer to. Just some of them, we wanted to give you some, range of them.
We actually, excuse me, Julie.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Dr. Walsh, go ahead.
We've documented 135 community agencies and institutions in the city of Springfield that are working with the Springfield schools actively. And that's significant. And there's one thing I'd like to add, and then I'll be quiet, Julie, is that Columbia University 2 years ago did a cost benefit study of City Connects, saying, is it worth the money? Is it worth it? And they did this cost benefit study looking at a couple of things. But what they found was for every dollar invested in City Connects, there was $11 returned to society because of the benefits to the students. And then they said, please tell us how much you pay for the services. Now, we don't pay, but the services cost money. Healthcare costs money, which insurance pays for. After school costs money, which philanthropy pays for. Dental services cost money, which the dental services and the Medicaid pay for. So they said, calculate the cost of the services that the students are getting and the enrichment opportunities. And we did. And there was still a 3-to-1 return on the investment if you even include the cost of the services. So that was pretty stunning information and has been published in several different ways. So it's worth the effort and worth the money. Thanks.
Dr. Walsh, I must say, and if you notice, we do have a Mary Walsh School too, where City Connect has been.
I
So,
noticed
I must-
in one egocentric moment, I believed it was after.
Oh, right, you're very humble and genuine, but I have to say, when you opened up and mentioned about, well, there was bureaucrats or some scholars that this is never gonna move the needle, you know, common sense comes into play, and I think you hit it right on the head. If a child has a bad tooth or a mouth problem, how are they gonna be able to learn and wanna come on? You need help with that. Just a week or so ago, or 10 days ago, Brightwood School, great program, sneakers. If a child, kids grow so quick, you don't have the proper footwear to wear. You don't want to go to school. If you're hungry, on your mind is what am I going to eat next, or what am I going to have my next meal instead of learning. So I don't know who said that to you, but God bless you, Dr. Walsh, because it is making a difference. So I'll turn it back to you, Dr. Walsh, or Julie, before we go to school committee members. So I appreciate your common sense.
Thank you.
So I think
Julie?
our presentation is done. If there's any questions, thank you again for having us.
I will open it up, Superintendent Warwick, or I'll open it up, obviously, to school committee members for any questions or comments you might have, please.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Ms. Gresham, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question is, if you have students that need outside services or outside resource, do we provide transportation? How does that work?
We don't provide transportation. We try to get them the transportation that they need. A lot of our after school programs that's in their fee, or vouchers, different PBTA tokens, things of that nature.
Okay. And what's the criteria of adding a school to City Connect?
Yep. So we look at all types of data. So their MCAS scores, their attendance rate, their size of the school. So it's a bunch of data that we look at.
Okay. All right. Perfect. Thank you.
Ms. Gresham,
Before you
Vice Collins?
Julie, could you stop sharing your screen? It'd be helpful so we can see the whole committee.
Before she does.
I'm sorry, Denise.
That's okay. She may have to answer without the screen, without the slide.
Ms. Hurst, go ahead, please.
Thank you. So Julie, there was a slide where you talked about the number of teachers, and I think it was on the survey portion where I think you cited 108 teachers, and then you cited the number of various services. I think it was over 100,000. I missed, how many students do we have actually enrolled in City Connects?
So it was last year's data. So there was about over 9,000 students.
Throughout all the schools that were listed on that last slide.
Well, on the last slide, there is some schools that we just added this year.
So 9,000 students from last year.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hurst. Any questions or comments?
Ms.
Naylor.
I have a few questions. Thank you. I have a few, so I'm going to try to take my time with this. First, I want to preface this by saying that I've had wonderful encounters with City Connect's personnel. Actually, my son, many moons ago, had some issues that City Connects was there to help with. So I do want to say that I do appreciate it. Before I ask my question, so I want y'all to know that at first, that is not asking these questions as for any other reason, just because I need to understand better and kind of understand the optics of it. So the first question is, what are the qualifications for somebody who wants to be a City Connects coordinator?
So they have to have a master's degree in school counseling, social work, mental health counseling. And yeah, that's just a master's degree.
Okay, thank you. And when you talk about the services in the reference, do you identify who carries out those services? Like you talked about working with counselors, you talked about working with the teachers and stuff like that. Do you identify and say, for example, in your MyConnect database, these are the folks that we refer to, these are the folks that help to carry out these tasks?
Yes.
Is it broken down in that way?
Yes. Yes. So like if you're, a counselor was doing her direct or his direct services, we would list that. It says counseling, IEP counseling, count by school counselor, IEP counseling. So they are, all of them are listed in our database.
Thank you. And then how is it, and I'm trying to understand, I'm trying to get a visual of what the difference is between the counselor's job and the City Connect's job. Just looking at some of the interventions and some of the things that you all do, it seems like there's a lot of overlap. And so I'm just trying to see how that works, or how you make that decision of what the City Connect's people are doing versus what the counselors are expected to do.
So I'm not sure if you're familiar with intensive care coordination, which is a CBHI type of, so that in the CBHI, they have what they call intensive care coordinator. And what they do, I'm making like a similarity here. So what they do is they, hold these meetings, find where they need to refer out or refer in this case, in the school. So they are building like a system or plan for that student. Now, yes, our counselors do all of the direct services. So that's IEP counseling, 504 counseling, any type of crisis interventions that need to be done. They write their 504 plans, they do the functional behavioral assessments, the behavior plans. Those are all, something that we do not do. So because of the expertise that we have in regards to, social work or school counseling background, it's imperative to use us for, those second step lessons. And, you have to, there's so many, the second step, is such a great program, and it reaches all, it's a tier 1 support. So it reaches all students. So small social skills groups might be, something that the counselor and the coordinator do together or split. But City Connects coordinators do not do direct, the counselors have more, time in regards to those direct services. I don't know,
I
Mary.
think if I could address that.
Dr. Walsh, please.
Yes.
Go ahead, Dr. Walsh, please. Thank you. Go ahead. Go ahead, Dr. Walsh. Yeah.
Okay. If I could address that just for a moment. The coordinators, the City Connects coordinators kind of run an infrastructure inside the school. It's like the wheels that get each child to the right set of supports, and they work with every single child. The counselors, as I hear Julie, and this is how it is in most school districts, the counselors do full-time direct service. The City Connects coordinators do some indirect service by getting children to other services. Sometimes it's a referral to the counselor. And then, because they do have enough of a background, they do some direct service, but that's not their major role. Their major role is to do this wraparound and to run these whole class reviews with teachers, which really is a hugely time-consuming job. So if there weren't counselors, it would be hard to take care of everything happening. But, you know, having spent a few days in schools myself over the years, there can be 10 crises going on at once in a school. And so you need all hands on deck. And so in that case, they're probably doing the same thing at that moment, but their jobs are different.
Thank you, Dr. Walsh.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I have two more questions. I'm almost done. The MyConnect database that you have,
Yeah.
what kind of data is put into it? And you already answered the question about the task being referenced, but is this data shared outside of the district? And is there identifying data, or is it shared in some aggregate form or otherwise?
Let me address that if I can, and I can. This is our primary concern at the central office. The database is as secure as it possibly could be. It went through levels and levels of review. I have never once in 20 years seen an identifying piece of information about any child. We work with the aggregate data, the data that's already, you know, says there's 60% do this, 40% do that. So we work with the aggregate data. The principal can see the student plans. Nobody else can in that school. So it's not like every teacher has access. The kind of data that's put in, Julie was describing, is what are the services or supports. If in a whole class review, we learn that a child has a physical problem, we would just say, health problem, see nurse. If we learn a child has significant problem at home, there may be, for example, family violence, we would not put that in. Anything that would have to do with child abuse, it would just say, child has challenges in family, period. So that there, even if anybody got into it, and in 20 years, that has not happened, that there's no identifying information that they could get in either end, either about the problem and the nature of the problem, or the name or identifying information about the child. That is a huge priority. Even the superintendent can't see the names of the kids.
I appreciate you saying that. Thank you so much for that clarification. My last question is really a plug for our kids, and that is BC has such a reputable name. And I wonder if we already have relationships with you all because of this relationship that is very extensive. Are there opportunities for scholarships and whatnot available for our children that may want to go to BC in the future?
You know,
way
that's
to parlay that, Latonia. Way to parlay that. I like that. I like that. Nothing like putting you on the spot, Dr. Walsh, huh? BC Eagles, go.
I can tell you if any child put in their application that they had gone through the City Connects program, BC would take a second, third, and fourth look because they're pretty proud of City Connects, and that would be an eye opener for who's ever on the committee. I don't think, I'll check on that and see if there are designated scholarships for the city of Springfield. And if not, maybe we can get a donor to do that. That's the, you know, that's the kind of thing you want to do some fundraising for. Wouldn't that be terrific? If we had our first City Connect student getting a scholarship to BC.
Well, later on in my report today, I'm going to talk about two Central High students, two of our football players, that both have offers for full boats from BC.
Oh,
so
wow.
The Griffins.
Wow.
It's great news, yeah. So, a junior and a sophomore who already has a full boat to BC. And the junior has BC, Notre Dame, and two other great colleges he has offers from. So those kind of things are happening. It's what a great opportunity.
And the dad is a security officer.
Dad's one of our security guys.
Security guards.
Ah.
In the Springfield Public Schools.
Yeah.
So how do you like that? So Latonia already has a scholarship name. It's going to be the Dr. Mary Wall Scholarship.
Well, Thank you.
I'm going to anticipate Dr. Walsh's next question. Did either one of those two go through City Connects?
Well, it's a great question. My guess is they probably did because they came up through the system.
Yeah.
And most of our elementaries as they were coming up did have City Connect, so we could,
tell you.
well, I probably don't have access to check it, but Mary Walsh probably would.
We have the first Globe story. There it is.
All right.
That's
All
terrific.
right.
That's
Thank you,
terrific.
Dr. Walsh.
But you did
Yeah, that's
anticipate my question.
Ms. Naylor, and that was a good closing. Way to parlay that. The Kentucky Derby, listen, is coming up Saturday. So that was a nice parlay you had over there. And we'll get a trifecta. How's that? Any other questions or comments? I can't, pertaining to City Connects?
I just had one.
Sorry, go ahead.
And no worries. And Mrs. Donovan might have already alluded to it. So is there a City Connects coordinator in every school that was listed at the end? Or do they share schools?
There is a full-time City Connects coordinator in all of those schools.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much.
We've been expanding it at every opportunity we get, Denise, through any kind of funding sources we can. And actually, we're still getting the $1 million a year from Mass Mutual, which was very helpful in expanding the program. And they're talking about giving us more money to add some more schools as we move on to next year.
And does that funding specifically go towards offsetting those salaries? What does the funding go toward? Does it keep the model or the partnership going with BC? How does that work?
So we use the money to fund the salaries at the schools, which is, the biggest cost. So it's very helpful.
Okay. And is Mass our only sponsor?
Mass Mutual right now, I believe, I know we've had some others in the past, and we're seeking out some other pieces to look at that. But right now, I think Mass Mutual is the only active one.
Okay. Thank you.
You have two heavy hitters there, well-respected institutions, Mass Mutual, who's been there for us for 168 years, and of course, Boston College, highly respected institutions helping out our community, and we appreciate that.
But Mary Walsh and Boston College have been great partners with the city of Springfield. I first went to see the model in Boston, and Mary presented, back about 12 years ago when we adopted the model, and was so impressed when I came away. But they've just been absolutely fabulous partners to work with, and the results have been outstanding. So it's, just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart, Mary, for all your great work.
We're really working it very well tonight, Dr. Walsh, I'll tell you that. Just a Vice Chair Collins, please.
Point, Mayor, the grant, the Mass Mutual grant, and we have had a couple of others, are being utilized the way grants should be. You fund some positions, and if they prove to be valuable, we need to institutionalize them and work them into our budget, which we've been doing over the years to make sure that a valuable service doesn't disappear. So that's the ones that Mass Mutual does now. We will slowly get them onto regular salary so we don't lose that kind of a service.
Thank you, Vice Chair Collins. Any other questions or comments pertaining to City Connect?
Well, I was going to say that I actually am glad that you just said that, Vice Chair Collins, because I think that was the reasoning for my questioning was, we know that at some point in time, funding can go away at the drop of a dime. And so I guess I was wondering, what are we doing to sort of build internal capacity so that we can replicate this model if in fact, or if because it's working so well, like what can we do very similar to when we had the home visiting program, right? And we were able to bring that in-house. What are we doing to ensure that we're able to continue this type of work?
Yeah, and that's part of the program. Julie actually works coordinating the program, but, she works here at the Springfield Public Schools doing it. So we have a great deal of internal capacity. We just keep Boston College as a partner in the program. But, and as we get our Opportunity Act money and more money is available, we'll have more resources to be able to provide programs like this. But Mass Mutual has been a good segue into that kind of a situation for us.
Denise, you may not have verbalized the question, but we've all been working together so long. I heard your question in what you said anyway, which is why I kind of jumped in with that comment. We have been gradually doing exactly what you were trying to get at, institutionalizing these positions so we don't lose them.
Yeah.
I just want to add that last week, the Department of Education put out a report on re-entering schools. And it was making a lot of recommendations to schools for what they do with re-entry. And City Connects was featured prominently in that report. And we didn't know that was coming. We don't know anybody in the Biden administration. We were there. So we feel really delighted that some of the monies coming from Washington can be used to support this kind of thing in the schools. It can support salaries. They're pushing very hard from the US Department of Ed to use these kinds of programs in schools because of the kind of data we're seeing out of City Connects.
And isn't that a fresh new approach from the Federal Department of Education?
Exactly.
Any other questions or comments pertaining to City Connect? Okay, hearing on. Dr. Walsh, thank you so much, and good health to you and your family, and thank you for really caring about our kids here in the city of Springfield. BC Eagles fly high, and Julie Donovan, thank you very, very much. If there's no other questions, we're going to move. As a matter of fact, Pat Roach, with your background there, are you producing a Corona Snoop Dogg commercial over there with them?
I'm imagining myself someplace nice.
Okay. I just was noticing that with the comment.
I hope your wife isn't watching when you said that.
All right, we're going to move on to C, discussion regarding City Council proposal for filling vacancies. This came about with my friend and colleague on the City Council, Councilor Melvin Edwards. The council's in the midst of how they fill a vacancy, and it was like an FYI, a reach out to say, geez, we wanted to reach out. They reached out to me on how the school committee might feel or might not feel about it. And out of respect, I wanted to make sure all my colleagues would copy that email. We have a process that's worked well before, but Vice Chair Collins, we just wanted to put it on there, and I
and I had a reach out as well. I had a reach out from Councilor Victor Davia, and I'd like the mayor said, look, everybody on the school committee should weigh in on this. So let's either have a separate meeting, but this agenda was relatively light, so we decided to put it on so that we could all interact on what we think about this. The one thing that Councilor Davia did tell me that the original bill that they filed with the council before it went into is it the government committee that they have over there? Whatever the name of their committee is, did not include the school committee. It was during a subcommittee meeting and someone said, oh, why don't we just add the school committee? And that's why I figured we would have opinion on it. I think we'd all like to discuss it, and we may have an opinion whether we'd like to see them add it or not.
I know that, so we just wanted to put it on there. We do have a process. It's worked well not too long ago, worked well with former school committee man, Norman Roland, filling a vacancy. But we do have a process already, but we just, as an FYI, put it on to see if there's any thoughts. If not, we do have a process and we move forward from there. So I'll open it up to school committee members if you have any questions or comments at all. We haven't seen anything technically at all anyways from that.
I didn't get a copy of it, but what I was explained, it was explained to me from Councilor Davia, who supposedly drafted it. And there was also one thing that you might not, that is different from the way our process goes. Our process applies to all of us. if there's a vacancy for any one of our positions.
Right.
This particular one that's been filed would treat at-large people differently than from ward people. If the way it was explained to me was that if there is a vacancy in a position from someone who is elected at large, they would take the next person down, the person who got the next votes, and they would automatically go into the seat. Basically like our process.
Yeah.
But if there was a vacancy in a ward position, and there was more than, I forget what the 260 or 250 days left, they would have a special election rather than take the next person down, who the next highest vote getter. So it's the fact that this one treated two different positions differently. I thought the committee would like to have a chance to discuss it and see whether or not we wanted to be added, whether the thoughts of ours, do we want to be added to this legislation, or do we think they ought to just go ahead on their own?
Yeah, again, it was just a sort of an FYI reach out, and we do have a process. It has worked well, but I wanted to put it out for any discussion, if there is any discussion on this at all.
May I ask, what is
Yes, sir.
thank you, Mr. Mayor, is the request that we sign on to this process that Vice Chair Collins just explained, and they will file the legislation with the legislature and include us, or do we get to file our own? And do we have to file our own if we want to change the current process that we have?
Excellent questions, Denise, and those were the kind of things that were running through my mind. The way it was filed currently sits, because it has not been amended yet, is they would be doing it only for the city council.
Yeah.
It was in the subcommittee that someone said, oh, let's just throw the school committee in too. Somehow I think we'd like to weigh in on any process that involves us. So that's why I wanted to get it on. Let's hear what we all think about that. Personally, I think if they want to file something on changing the way they fill their positions, go ahead.
That's their business.
But I don't think it necessarily applies, in my opinion, is something we would want to have applied to us.
But Attorney Phelps, I was going to call on you already. I mean, we have a protocol already. I don't want to get something convoluted or open up a Pandora's box here. What we have has worked. We haven't had any issues. I think it was just out of courtesy. Hey, Don, Mayor, we're doing this. You know, what's your thoughts on it? What do you think about the school committee? So when I received the information or the email contact, I made sure it was forwarded to all my colleagues on the school committee. What's your thoughts on this as an FYI? Attorney Phelps, please.
Thank you. The original ordinance was drafted by Councilor Fenton and passed unanimously, I want to say 4 or 5 years ago by the city council. It did at that time include the school committee, but I have no recollection of the school committee being involved in that process. So this was resurrected by Councilor Davila, and it was sent to the governance subcommittee chaired by Councilor Edwards. I spoke with Councilor Edwards today, and as they were in the subcommittee, he raised the question of whether or not the school committee was interested in joining the city council in this change to the ordinance, and which requires home rule approval from the legislature. When Councilor Fenton filed his legislation, it basically died in the state legislature. So it's really just a question that Councilor Edwards, as the thoughtful counselor that he is, inquiring as to whether there's any interest from the school committee. I think there are problems with this legislation in that it treats the two different tiers of city councilors differently. It affords certain procedural preferences to the ward councilors as opposed to the at-large councilors with regards to a special election. There's a cost to the city in that regard. And I went back and looking at our school committee history for the last 15 years, this has not been an issue for the school committee. You know, School Committeeman Ms. McFadden, who moved out of the city. That was effective September 30th, 2016, close enough to the election. And he was an at-large city councilor or school committee member, I'm sorry. And the only instance in which this was implemented, or the procedure that stands with the procedures adopted by the school committee, was with regards to with the school committee woman who resigned because she was moving out of state. Her husband's job changed. Ms. Perez in June of 2017, representing wards 1 and 3. And if you recall, by unanimous vote, Attorney Roldan served out the balance of her term until the election was held. So I think there's problems with the legislation and as to whether or not it would ever pass muster, in that it treats two tiers of city councilors disparately. But happy to answer any questions anyone may have.
Thank you, Attorney Phelps, for clarifying that. Any questions or comments?
Denise is in.
Ms. Naylor, go ahead.
I do understand that we haven't had this issue in the past, but I think there can be a time when it does occur. And we were in a good space where we had Mr. Roldan to be able to come in as a former school committee member. But I think in the event that if something were to happen moving forward, I would like to have some type of policy in place that would be democratic and not just, especially because we have 4-year terms. I think if we had shorter terms, I wouldn't be as concerned. But with us having 4-year terms, only if somebody needs to leave at the very beginning, then is it fair for us to just appoint somebody else who may or may not have run in an election? Because sometimes people don't run against people if they think they're doing a good job. So it's possible to be in situations where people don't have opponents. So that's my concern, how we go about it. I think the legislation behind it is, I don't know if I'm convinced that it's going to get passed anyways, but I just really am concerned that we make decisions and don't allow the public the right or the democratic honor to be able to vote on these situations as we would in a regular election.
May I?
Ms. Naylor. Ms. Hurst? Yep.
Yes. So Attorney Phelps, as it stands right now, if we wanted to change the process that the school committee currently follows, that would have to be approved by the legislature. That would be a home rule petition.
So for the city council, it's a home rule petition.
But for us, it's not. It can be internal, like it could be something that we decide locally.
Right. You have adopted, and it's been in effect since 1992. The policy, the procedure is that the person with the next highest number of votes from the most recent municipal election at which the school committee member who has vacated said office was elected is eligible, and who is eligible and willing to serve. And the city clerk shall administer the oath of office to such individual. So it always went to the next highest vote getter. And that's what is in effect. No matter if you're an at-large school committee woman, member, or a ward member.
Okay, and I agree with that. I actually happen to agree with that. And I would not want to do what the city council is currently proposing. But I guess my question is, what happens if you don't, like Ms. Naylor just cited, what happens if you don't have the next runner up? Like,
sure.
What happens if there wasn't anybody who ran in a ward, or there wasn't any more than 2 at-large school committee people? That means it would then be incumbent upon the school committee to make the determination of who would fill that particular seat.
That's correct. You already have a procedure in place since 1992. If no such person is eligible and willing to serve. So it's really, if there's no other person eligible to serve because there was no second vote getter, the remaining members of the school committee shall choose any registered voter of the city who is eligible and willing to serve on the school committee for the remainder of the unexpired term.
And so to that point, could we change it so that, so my understanding in all candor is that this has come up because the governing bodies are feeling as though they should not have to make a decision about who should fill these elected seats, that it should be the voice of the people, democracy, as Ms. Naylor stated, that it should be a democratic process. So for us, is it possible to have that be the case where the school committee wouldn't decide on who would fill that seat if there wasn't a second runner-up, but that the people of the city would decide that, or the people of the ward?
So the school committee is in a different position than the city council. So the school committee makes its own policies and procedures. As I just read, that this was the procedure adopted. It's not a statute, it's not a regulation, it's permissive by you as the body deciding how you want to proceed.
So we could do that then?
That's my understanding. So the issue of including the school committee in this request for special legislation is a question. What, why? Because they are two separate legislative bodies.
And there would be a cost to me on the city, there's a cost to me on the city side also.
That's
too.
right. That's right.
I'm not, I'm just pointing it out, but I mean, we have had a process that has worked. We're under control of that. Also, if you move forward on this with the home rule, if it does go anywhere or not, the council now all of a sudden we're getting into something where we've lost our own direct control on it. So, but I'll entertain any more discussions or comments on it.
If I could just,
I think this needs a deeper discussion, maybe, I don't know whether it be legislative subcuts committee. I mean, because there's all kinds of variables. God forbid, let's say someone gets elected and sworn in, and within the first 6 months, well, maybe they just moved away, rather than say they passed away. And you've got a 3.5-year term. Do we say that somebody gets elected at the next city election for a 2-year term to fill that? Do we, how long? I think that we need a deeper discussion around timeframes and alternatives before. I don't think we're going to solve it tonight. I think we should do some discussion, though. You bring up a good point, Denise. If there's 3 years left on a term, shouldn't the public have a void on it?
This search you do bring up a great point there. Maybe that's.
And Latonia,
I just like to keep it under our control. So maybe there is a point there where we amend it, saying, if it's you're filling a certain term, it's a certain term with a year or months on that, fine, an appointment. If it's longer, then going to the next municipal election, which we already have ballot on it, that whether it's ward. And maybe it could come up at large. I'm not sure, because you're right, Denise. Maybe if you don't have multiple people running, that can be looked at, and then you would have that democratic process from that ward being able to vote. But we can, again, if it's what Attorney Phelps, we can control this. We can control this direction, this conversation. So, I'd rather keep it on our table than open up Pandora's boxes or create a convoluted system here, which Mike Fenton had put a very thoughtful proposal together 4 or 5 years ago, and it went nowhere in the legislature.
thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's what I was going to suggest, is that this go to a subcommittee for a deep, look into the various factors, cost, length of time, where in the election term this might occur. And then I do think looking at the disparate treatment between at-large and ward representation on the school committee really needs to be looked at as a legal issue.
So do we take a vote as to whether or not we're going to sign on with the city council or no?
No.
No.
Well, this wasn't on as this was not put on as a voting item, so basically we can't because of our rules of order.
I guess
but if everybody, Go ahead.
Go ahead, Ms. Hirsch.
I guess I was going to say that, one, I agree that there needs to be a deeper discussion and more so even just a real strategy and revision of a potential revision of our policy, so that we're ensuring that it's a thorough democratic process and that we're taking into consideration all of the things that Attorney Phelps just highlighted. But I think it sounds like, and I shouldn't say this because only 3 of us have spoke up on it, but I don't want to give up local control. Like, I don't do that.
Yeah. Denise, well put. I think that's where we are. We want to address this, but we don't want, council's doing what they have to do. They feel what they think that they have to do. We don't want to get involved in something that could be convoluted, open a Pandora's box, go nowhere in the state legislature at all. We can control our own destiny. That's all I'm saying. So why don't we just keep it in our house? I think that's what you're saying on that.
Yeah, I agree. I say keep it in our own house, but I don't think that we should not revisit it, because I do think that
that's fine.
We've had, a fairly seamless process, or that we've not had any issues come up. I do think that it's inevitable that we could find ourselves in that place at some particular point in time. And I think that we should try and be proactive rather than reactive.
Agreed.
It's certainly worth our discussion. If it seems to be the consensus of the committee, I can communicate back to Councilor Edwards and to Councilor Davia that we've decided we're going to put it into one of our subcommittees to study it more deeply at this time. And so we prefer that you don't add us on.
Yes.
That seems to be the consensus of the committee.
Ms. Perez, did you want to say something, Ms. Perez?
Lesson learned. It did affect me directly and affect the community. I think it's great that we are discussing this issue. I hear Attorney Phelps say that we have provisions in place since 1992. And I think that I would not want to see the community not going into a democratic process and having a legislative body taking control of a ward in exactly what happened. So I agree totally. We should be our own body, but have this discussion so we don't have all this turmoil that we had within the community that I serve that affected them directly. We have the legislator committee. I think we need to bring it to the legislative committee and discuss what provisions we could put in place that this will not happen to us in further future.
Thank you, Ms. Perez. So I think, and again, to Ms. Hurst, to Ms. Perez, and Ms. Naylor, you brought up good points. We can control our own destiny. We all agree we want to do that, number one. Number two, we have certain criteria that we're okay with. It's that one point there, if you had the perfect storm and there was no one out of the ward or possibly at large, and there was a prolonged period of time before the next election, we want to be able to safeguard that ward, or if it's at large, that the residents have a democratic process. So I don't have any issue with that. Is it okay that Vice Chair Collins can communicate back? Councilor Edwards, Councilor Davila saying, hey, good luck with your process. We can control our own process here without any type of special home rule legislation. Is that okay? I'm just asking.
Yeah, it's okay with me. I agree.
Yes. Ms. Gresham, go ahead, then I'll go to Attorney Murphy.
Yeah, I do agree that we need a deeper discussion, but we also want to keep in mind that we want to control our own. So I agree that Chris can go back to the council with that.
Attorney Murphy, thank you, Ms. Gresham. Attorney Murphy?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I also agree with everyone that I think that we should take a deeper review of this. And just a little bit of the history, the 1992, I think the the decision that you're referring to, that we passed in 92, Attorney Phelps, that was before ward representation. And it also, if you remember back then, there were staggered terms. There were 4-year terms that were staggered. So you did have more of a turnover as opposed to how it is now, that we only have, everyone is on a 4-year term, which seems to be an issue, that makes sense that we might not want to do that. And I think the last time that we replaced, I believe it was Miss Pepe who had come in at large in the third spot, and she was deceased. So I think that's when we had to go to another candidate, which turned out to be Mr. Roldan. And so that was a little bit of an unusual situation, I think.
No, I think it was, just a clarification, that was Rosa Perez that we went to Mr. Roldan, I believe.
I'm sorry, Mayor.
Because
But
I believe, I'm trying to think on that. I thought
Attorney
It
Murphy
was
makes an
actually
excellent-
both. It was both. It was both times.
It was both times.
Okay, well, thank you for that. I remember the last time, I think was Rosa Perez, though, am I correct? I'm just thinking of what, and you gotta remember, in the older days,
No.
it was bicameral, you had
Mr. Mayor.
city council and school committee coming in a joint convention to pick out.
Yeah, that was a long time ago.
So I'm sorry, clarify that, because I remember Rosa Perez.
Yeah.
And Antoinette Garros, so go, yeah, if you want to clarify that.
I don't want to confuse anything, Mayor. I just think it is true.
Yeah.
We should talk about it and send it to committee and really try to.
Okay.
Yeah.
But your point, Attorney Murphy, is excellent. It's been 30 years. And the last one that we did was prior to ward representation. And if you really read our current policy, it says that any member of the city may be appointed to fill the vacancy. And so I don't think we would all feel that way right now. I think we have other thoughts, like if it came out of a ward, it ought to go back to the ward, So that's why we need to have a much deeper discussion. It's been 30 years.
That's right. Okay. Thank you for clarifying that. Yeah, I forgot all about, I remember the most recent one. Okay, so we're in agreement then that we want to obviously control our own destiny, because we can legally. We're okay with most of the process we have, but there's that one process we'd like to tweak, which, again, Councilor Naylor, School Committee Woman Naylor and Ms. Hurst and Ms. Perez indicated that if that situation crops up, as with Attorney Murphy on it. So is it okay then for the Vice Chair? He'll go back on our behalf with Councilor Edwards, kind of saying, good luck. We'll go it on our own to make some tweaks, which we can control on our own. Is that okay? And there'll be a follow-up meeting.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
That's great. Thank you, Mayor.
When it is added to the agenda, because it is something that's of interest, although it's going to be going to the subcommittee level, could all of us be notified just so that if we make time to attend that subcommittee?
Sure. As with any subcommittee, all members are always invited to attend, and the chair lets you participate. But yeah, this is such a vital thing. When the legislative and contract subcommittee is scheduled, we'll make sure that notice goes out to everybody.
Good idea.
Ms. Attorney Phelps, please.
Mayor, I'm wondering if it might be helpful if I circulate to the school committee members the existing language regarding the process and procedure.
Yes.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
If there's no other questions or comments, we'll move to reports of standing committees. Okay, hearing none. Student relation, parent concerns, Ms. Gresham. Ms. Gresham?
No report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. B is Building and Maintenance Committee, Vice Chair Collins.
No report at this time.
Thank you. C is Legislative Contracts Committee, Ms. Perez.
No report at this time.
Thank you. D is Curriculum Programs Committee, Ms. Hurst, please.
No report at this time, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. E is Budget and Finance Committee, Vice Chair Collins, please.
We did hold our meeting the other day.
Last night.
Last night. Time flies. Had our review. No one from the public requested to speak, but we had a nice review for the whole committee to go through it from Pat Roach. So,
thank you, Vice Chair Collins. Any questions or comments?
Yes, I wanted to just something. I was sharing this with Chris on, I think it was yesterday, whenever we had our thing, that I was on a call, on a statewide call, and they were complaining about districts and their budget process. And I was telling them about our process and how we open up our process to the public before we make final decisions through surveys, by posting on our website, just all the different ways that we work to let folks know that we are working on the budget for the next year and we want their input if they would like to contribute. And folks on the line were just astounded. And I actually had 2 or 3 meetings with people following that call who were like, can you restate what you said? What do you all do? And I said it, and they're like, that doesn't happen everywhere. So I just wanted to really thank Chris for his advocacy on this, and Superintendent and Mayor for you allowing it, that we are trendsetters in this arena, and that folks need to know that this is not a secret society. We are asking them to come and contribute, and we want to hear what they have to say. And if you don't say anything, then we don't want to hear a complaint.
You are absolutely correct, Mrs. Naylor. No matter what school committee thing you go to, if this topic comes up, they're astounded that we start the process by asking students, parents, public, what, input at the beginning. Everybody's always astounded that we do that. Why they're astounded, it just seems to us so logical, but they are.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Thank you, Ms. Naylor. We always appreciate that feedback from the state level meetings. F is Vocational Education Committee, Attorney Murphy, please.
No report, Mayor. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Attorney Murphy. G is Technology Committee, Ms. Naylor.
No report.
Thank you very much. H is School Safety Committee, Ms. Gresham, please.
No report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I is Special Subcommittee Staff Demographics, Ms. Perez, please.
No report at this time, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Report of the Student Representative School Committee, Nazir Jennings. I know Naz used to be on with us. He's Springfield Public Day High School, and I know that he does do some work. So Naz, we're wishing you the best, and we look forward to when you're able to come back and join us.
And we apologize that you got elected representative when the pandemic hit. And it cut your opportunity to participate with us.
Thank you, Vice Chair Collins. A report of the Superintendent. Superintendent Ward, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Some bits of good news here. Our Central ROTC team won the 2021 Air Force National Champions. They won the National Invitational Drill Competition Championship. So, again, Central just excelling in the extracurriculars as well as everything else.
That's Central what
That's the Central Fight Song, put on by Pete Murphy.
Yeah, we know that.
Central football. That was great timing, Murphy. Central football.
Thank you.
This is a great story. I mentioned it when Mary Walsh was on, when Latonia so effectively worked her towards a scholarship. Got 2 of our kids, brothers, and their dad is a security guard for us. Joe Griffin in 11th grade, full scholarship offers, BC, Notre Dame, Arizona, and UMass. So just incredible. And his brother, Josiah, only a sophomore, already has a full boat offer at BC. So that's absolutely incredible. So I talked to Dwayne after, and Dwayne's going to put a list together for us to share, just going through all the different sports, how many scholarships kids are getting in other sports like wrestling and so on. These are full boats, so great opportunities for the kids. So when we're trying to keep our sports program alive, it's a lot more than just the individual sport at the time. This can really change kids' lives. So we're going to get you more information on that as well. Speaking of sports, spring sports, I asked Lydia to present how things are going at the start. Helen's been very helpful with the testing, and we're off and going on spring sports. So Lydia, if you can give us a quick update.
Assistant Superintendent Martinez, please.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. So as you know, we tested last week for our spring sports, which are track, baseball, softball, tennis, and lacrosse. And luckily enough, we only had 2 students that tested positive. All the others were negative, and we have started the spring sports. As we start the spring sports, wrestling has now come. If you recall, when we talked the last time, we didn't know what was going to happen with wrestling yet. The guidance for wrestling is going to be released tomorrow, so we will be taking a really good look at it. However, we do have the opportunity to start conditioning, just training, not doing the actual wrestling moves, the takedowns and all that good stuff that happens in wrestling, but the kids can start training in terms of weightlifting and other conditioning that they actually do. We do have plans to test all the wrestlers next week to make sure that they are all negative and ready to go. As we wait for the guidance, we didn't want to wait too long because the season would be over by the time we got them started. And I don't know if you saw the news last night, but some of our surrounding neighborhoods are already starting to condition. If the guidelines do allow us to wrestle, we're thinking it's going to be just Springfield against Springfield so that we are super cautious because of COVID. But more to come. We met today with the superintendent and myself and our awesome commissioner, Helen Colton Harris, who has just been amazing with us, myself at AD early to just get the ball rolling. So we wanted to give you just an update of where we are and that the wrestling will be released tomorrow, and then we'll need your permission to proceed with the actual season.
Thank you, Assistant Superintendent Martinez. I don't know if there's any questions or comments of the Assistant Superintendent.
If the guidance comes through tomorrow and lets you start before the 13th, which is our next scheduled school committee meeting, we don't typically at our budget meeting add other items, but in order to get, if the kids can get back, we could add that to that agenda. So just, if that happens, keep in touch so that we can get the kids back as soon as possible.
Good point, Vice Chair Collins. I think with the indulgent school committee, Assistant Superintendent Martinez, Lydia, if we have to, I'm sure we could work it out to do a quick a vote on it on a scheduled meeting.
Yeah, our question is, do we need to have a vote in order for them to start just conditioning?
I was hoping to let them start conditioning because the guidance came out so late. We'd have brought it to you sooner, but the guidance didn't come out.
Attorney Phelps, please, could you clarify that? Because would that technically be starting the sport?
You know, I'd have to look into that. And my initial reaction is no, because the prohibition against, with the team interaction and playing is really what Desi's focus was.
Yeah.
So the distinction, if our own trainers in our own buildings without interaction with other teams is going on, that's controllable by the policies and procedures that are in effect by the school committee and by Jean Clancy's department. I think it's the next step when you start interacting with other school teams is Desi's concern. Be I can certainly look into that and respond.
We would really like to be conditioning them right after the testing if possible. So if we could get that clarification, that would be really great.
That would be helpful.
May I ask a question?
Yeah, Mr. Taylor, go ahead, yes.
How are we notifying students about the testing and the sports and stuff like that? Because I'm getting students that are reaching out after the fact who are saying that they didn't know. And it's multiple schools, so it's not just one school that it's happening at. And the other thing is, if they miss the testing, are they still able to get tested? I don't know if East Falmouth is still doing it, but is there another way for them to get tested and still be able to play?
Yes, and we've had quite a few students that didn't make our testing and went elsewhere. They just have to provide the actual written results to the coaches. But yes, we've had multiple students get tested outside of what we've done, and we've allowed them to come in. And in terms of the advertisement, it's happening through the schools. It's happening through the coaches. Azelle has put things out. So we've been advertising them through our media, social media, contact now that the students are all coming back to school or have the opportunity to come back to school. We're just doing it through all those venues. But we have done quite a lot of reach out. As you can see, we have tons of kids that actually have already played from September to now that have actually were notified. So there is multiple ways that we've been notifying them, and they can always call the school. So if anybody's interested in any sport, they should really reach out to their school buildings, teachers, everybody. We inform everybody of what we're doing.
Thank you, Assistant Superintendent Martinez. Any other questions or comments? Okay, hearing none, Superintendent Ward, please.
Yeah, you know, we sent an informational piece to you. May 17th, we're planning the high school reopening. Right now, the surveys for the high schools are running lower than the other levels. It's running in the 40, sometimes even 30% range. So my anticipation is we're going to have lower numbers turn out for high school when we do reopen on the 17th. But the SE mandated a May 17th reopening for high schools. So we're planning and going to execute that. Virtual Academy, we're still in the planning process for Virtual Academy. As we move through the process with DESE, we'll take it through a subcommittee when we're ready to get approval, to see if the committee wants approval on that. But we're going to adhere to the DESE timelines and get some submissions in and get that process going. So we've been working on that, and we're going to continue to work on it. We got notification today on our After Dark program, our Chapter 74 After Dark program, where our kids from SciTech are going over. We had 3 shops open this year, and we've been able to keep it going in spite of the pandemic, which is really incredible. Great job by Mr. Alves, Mr. Johnson, and Mr. Laline. We have Advanced Manufacturing, Health, and Metal Fab. We're going to be able to expand next year, DESE approved, an expansion to automotive technology and information support systems. So again, on expansion of that program during this has been outstanding. So we'll be planning that for next year. Great work and collaboration between the 2 schools. Urban League recognition, I wanted to mention it quick. Our teachers group was recognized by Henry Thomas in the Urban League, Maureen Colgan-Posner in the SDA, the Paris, Kathy Masternardi, and our own Helen Carlton-Harris, who almost seems like she's on our staff. She was even involved working with Lydia and I today to make sure we could get this wrestling bill pulled together. So great work by those groups, because it's been an incredible effort during the remote and now during the reopening by all concerned. And there's a contracts report in your packet to review.
Thank you.
That concludes my
report. Thank you, Superintendent Ward. Any questions or comments? Vice Chair Collins?
Nothing. You did cover the schools?
The virtual calendar?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Any questions or comments pertaining to the superintendent's report? Ms. Gresham?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Can the superintendent expand on Virtual Academy? Is that a new school or what? Because I don't remember us discussing it.
Yeah, I mentioned it at an earlier school committee meeting that we were exploring the opportunity of opening our own virtual school. DESE opened up the opportunity for school systems for the first time this year to operate a district virtual academy. So we could look at serving families that had been opting for home teaching, which has always occurred, and offer a more robust program with our technology support and academic support and our teachers working on it, you know, so that those kids would have an option other than home teaching that we would provide support for. So it would be run by the Springfield Public Schools and staffed by the Springfield Public Schools, but serve kids from across the district if we're able to pull it off. So DESE is opening it up for approval for the first time this year. We're taking a look at taking advantage of that and seeing if we can provide services for those families who might want those virtual services. So our team's working on it now. We'll be bringing a formal proposal to you in the near future on trying to get that going for next year. It's been a busy time of year anyway, but we thought this was opportune and wanted to take a shot at this because we think it'll be great for our kids and our families. So it would be for families that want the virtual academy, we provide that service.
Ms. Gresham, this is all been triggered by the COVID-19. Some principals have brought it up, and the superintendent want to take a look. I know Mike Calvinese too, that some of our students have really thrived and done very well on the virtual aspect of it. So it could be a door opener now to keep, for some parents, maybe not. And we could be much more robust, as the superintendent said, offering more structured type education on it. So this all came about because of the COVID-19.
I think Desi decided to expand the opportunity. Right now, the only one is in Greenfield that I know of, but we'd be able to take a shot at doing this so that we'd have something local for folks who, again, only want it. We're surveying parents now, so we're going to take a look at those survey results and see how we proceed.
All right.
But we'll be bringing it back to school committee with more information.
Right, because I know we briefly mentioned it, and then I think it was on News 40 this week or maybe last week. The superintendent was mentioning it, and he said we'd be voting on it in June. So I just wanted a little more clarification.
We'd have to vote before the end of the year. We'd have to bring it to a subcommittee first and then vote by the end of the year. We won't have the proposal ready till then. That these guidelines don't allow for that. We're still working on it.
Mm-hmm.
May I?
All right.
Ms. Hurst?
May I?
Was it Ms. Hurst? Yes, Ms. Hurst,
I have a couple questions. So one, when it goes, it's going to come through a subcommittee, and at that particular point in time, it'll be whatever the proposal is, perhaps the results of the survey. But Superintendent, will this virtual school, how many do we know is DESE going to approve? Are they only approving a certain amount, or is every district going to be able to provide this? What is it that DESE is governing?
Yeah, they're going to allow some. I don't know how many, Denise. I think what you're going to see is only some of the larger school systems try to do this. So I think it'll be a few of the larger urban districts that put proposals forward. That's what I've been hearing on it.
And so if that's the case, right, does that mean that the district, our district, is going to potentially have the opportunity to take students from other districts that may apply for that? Is it going to be, will it have somewhat of a school choice model?
Yeah, and I'll get you more information as we move forward. I'm not sure about how if we'd be able to take in kids from other districts and how that would work. The first opportunity we want to look at is serving Springfield students. But if we could take some from other districts, I know right now Greenfield has a model where they can take in kids from other districts. Paul, I know you've looked into this a lot. Do you have any more information on that?
Staff?
Yeah. So according to the regulation, this would be a single district virtual school, and the only students eligible to attend have to be Springfield residents.
Okay. Now, currently right now, the Greenfield school can take statewide.
They can take statewide, but this is a different model. So our model wouldn't be like Greenfield because it's a single district.
Yeah, I get that. But I just want to make sure we get up is one of our students opts to go to Greenfield. They get the full state allocation for that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
From our budget to Greenfield.
Yeah, right. So if our kids are going to Greenfield, we lose the whole Chapter 70 appropriation on that. That's how it's been. So this is the first bite at the apple. I think there'll only be a couple applications, Denise. I'm thinking from the large urbans, or that's what I've heard so far. But that's about, I'll get you more information as we have it.
And would it mean that our teachers, so are we going to provide it for all grades, or is it going to be only for a certain number of grades?
We're going to take a look at the surveys, but our intention would be for all grades. If the public is in, if the interest is there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hurst. Any other questions or comments? Okay, hearing none, unfinished business. Hearing none, new business. Would you recognize Mr. Gresham? I know you wanted to make an announcement.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Okay, thank you. Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. So I just wanted to mention that the Williams family has set up a scholarship fund in honor of Kamari. And I have the information if anyone would like to make a donation. So it's Kamari B. William Scholarship Fund in care of New Valley Bank and Trust, 1930 Wilbraham Road, Springfield, Mass. 01129.
I was with Rep. Williams this morning. I've already donated to it, all right, and I was with Buddy this morning when we were on another event, so I think that's very admirable to help out students moving forward. But Barbara,
Yes,
thank
I've
you.
donated.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah,
And
I've donated
they're gonna
also.
do more publicity. They're gonna do more
Yes.
publicity on it also.
Barbara, just in
Yes.
case anybody from the public who is watching and you might have gone a little fast, would you repeat
Okay.
that once more so that people
Sure.
would have that information?
Sure. Kamari B. Williams Scholarship Fund in care of New Valley Bank and Trust, 1930 Wilbraham Road, Springfield, Mass. 01129.
And also to clarify, it's a memorial scholarship on it for
Yes.
your,
Yes, Memorial Scholarship. Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Barb, for bringing that up.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Anything new business?
If I could just make a quick announcement, just a reminder. I did hear back from some people that I did send an email out to the school committee that Ana Chavez, the first Latina, to head up the National School Board Association as the president, is going to be in Western Massachusetts on the weekend 14th, and is being hosted at the Irish Cultural Center in West Springfield. And so due to COVID, there is limited capacity, but they did extend the invitation to Springfield School Committee members to be present. And so if you are interested, please let me know and I will forward your names.
Thank you, Ms. Hurst. Thank you for that correspondence.
Was it the 14th or the 15th?
So my understanding is that she's here all weekend between Connecticut and Mass, but I believe that the reception for her is Friday, May 14th from 4 to 6 at the Irish Cultural Center. That's what was open or what we've been invited to.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Hurst. Anything more on new business? Okay, hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn, please?
So moved.
Motion by Vice Chair Collins, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Perez. Roll call vote is required. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Sure. Ms. Naylor,
Yes.
Attorney Murphy,
Yes.
Ms. Hurst,
Yes.
Ms. Gresham,
Yes.
Ms. Perez,
Yes.
Mr. Collins,
Yes.
and Mayor Sarno.
That's more than sufficient vote. This matter passes. Good evening, and thank you for watching. Good health to you and your family.
Stay well, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Take care.